Good morning. I'm Scott Finley. Welcome to today's service on a beautiful, sunny morning of the first Sunday of fall. This morning's service is another interactive service in which Reverend Denise will answer questions that you submit online. You may have noticed the link in this week's e-blast that takes you to the form Reverend Denise created to gather all the questions for today. If not, you can find the link in the Zoom chat window in today's service description chat. Feel free to fill out a question now for Reverend Denise to answer later in the service. It's not too late to participate. What have you always wondered about Unitarian Universalism? Any questions about Reverend Denise? Questions about our new vision of ministry? Any other topics? Reverend Denise reserves the right to not answer any question. She does hope to answer as many questions as she can during our time together this morning. In addition to Reverend Denise, we also have Jenny helming the Zoom host duties today. Karen is co-host, and Sandy is at GNUUC with a beautiful fall-themed chalice display. Let us gather together. If you have pastoral care needs, please reach out to Reverend Denise at the email address on your screen. That is Rev Denise, REVDENISE, at GNUUC.org. As Sandy lights her chalice this morning, I will read these opening words written by Julianne Lepp. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our hearts be open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and welcoming of multiple truths. Our covenant brings to mind the warmth, wisdom, and truth of our congregation. Please join me in reading with me if you are so moved. We covenant together to make a welcoming community, to walk together in the way of truth and love, to seek the life of the Spirit as is known by each person, to support each other in thought, word, and deed as we work to build a better world. Our first hymn today is Where Do We Come From? By Paul Gauguin and Brian Tate.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery. Mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery. What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery. Mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going?
For this morning's Time for All Sages, I'd like to welcome Claire, who will be reading for us today. Good morning, Claire.
Good morning. Before we get started, I just want to warn some people that there is a brief temporary scene of an animal in distress in this story, but like I said, it's just temporary. So today's story is The Three Questions, which is based on a story by Leo Tolstoy, but in this one is written and illustrated by John J. Muth. There once was a boy named Nikolai who sometimes felt uncertain about the right way to act. I want to be a good person, he told his friends, but I don't always know the best way to do that. Nikolai's friends understood and they wanted to help him. If only I could find the answers to my three questions, Nikolai continued, then I would always know what to do. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? What is the right thing to do? Nikolai's friends considered his first question. Then Sonia the heron spoke. To know the best time to do things, one must plan in advance, she said. Gogol the monkey, who had been rooting through some leaves to find something good to eat, said, you will know when to do things if you watch and pay close attention. Then Pushkin the dog, who was just dozing off, rolled over and said, you can't pay attention to everything yourself. You need a pack to keep watch and help you decide when to do things. For example, Gogol, a coconut is about to fall on your head. Nikolai thought for a minute. Then he asked his second question. Who is the most important one? Those who are closest to heaven, said Sonia, circling up into the sky. Those who know how to heal the sick, said Gogol, stroking his bruised noggin. Those who make the rules, growled Pushkin. Nikolai thought some more. Then he asked the third question. What's the right thing to do? Flying, said Sonia. Having fun all the time, laughed Gogol. Fighting, barked Pushkin right away. And then the boy thought for a long while. He loved his friends. He knew they were all trying their best to help him answer his questions, but their answers didn't seem quite right. Then an idea came to him. I know, he thought, I will ask Leo the turtle. He has lived a very long time. Surely he will know the answers I am looking for. Nikolai hiked high up into the mountains where the old turtle lived all alone. When Nikolai arrived, he found Leo digging a garden. The turtle was old and digging was hard for him. I have 3 questions and I came to ask your help, Nikolai said. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? What is the right thing to do? Leo listened carefully, but he only smiled. Then he went on with digging. You must be tired, Nikolai said at last. Let me help you. The turtle gave him his shovel and thanked him. And because it was easier for a young boy to dig than it was for an old turtle, Nikolai kept on digging until the rows were finished. But just as he finished, the wind blew wildly and rain burst from darkened clouds. As they moved towards the cottage for shelter, Nikolai suddenly heard a cry for help. Running down the path, he found a panda whose leg had been injured by a fallen tree. Carefully, Nikolai carried her into Leo's house and made a splint for her leg with a stick of bamboo. The storm raged on, banging at the doors and windows. The panda woke up. Where am I? She said, and where is my child? The boy ran out of the cottage and down the path. The roar of the storm was deafening. Pushing against the howling wind and drenching rain, he ran further into the forest. There he found the panda's child, cold and shivering on the ground. The little panda was wet and scared, but alive. Nikolai carried her inside and made her warm and dry. Then he laid her in her mother's arms. Leo smiled when he saw what the boy had done. The next morning, the sun was warm, birds sang, and all was well with the world. The panda's leg was healing nicely, and she thanked Nikolai for saving her and her baby from the storm. At that moment, Sonia, Gogol, and Pushkin arrived to make sure everyone was all right. Nikolai felt a great peace within himself. He had wonderful friends, and he had saved the panda and her child, but he also felt disappointed. He still had not found the answers to his 3 questions, so he asked Leo one more time. The old turtle looked at the boy. "But your questions have already been answered," he said. "They have?" asked the boy. "Yesterday, if you had not stayed to help me dig my garden, you wouldn't have heard the panda's cries for help in the storm. Therefore, the most important time was the time you spent digging the garden. The most important one at that moment was me, and the most important thing to do was to help me with my garden. Later, when you found the injured panda, the most important time was the time you spent mending her leg and saving her child. The most important ones were the panda and her baby, and the most important thing to do was to take care of them and make them safe. Remember then that there is only one important time, and that time is now. The most important one is always the one you are with. And the most important thing is to do good for the one who is standing at your side. For these, my dear boy, are the answers to what is most important in this world. This is why we are here."
Thank you, Claire, for sharing that story with us at this important time right now. This month, September, our Share the Plate partner is the Nashville Cares AIDS Walk, put on by Nashville Cares. The walk itself will be a virtual event on October 2nd. If you'd like to join our team to walk, contact Doug or Nancy. So far, we raised over $1,700, which places us 5th in the team fundraising efforts. You can donate online, via text, or by check by following the instructions listed on the screen. We appreciate your generosity. Reverend Denise will be leading us in today's meditation. Good morning, Reverend Denise.
Good morning. Thank you, Scott. So, as you all know, this month our theme has been embracing possibility. And you might be wondering why I decided to do a question box for the sermon, or instead of a sermon, really. And part of the answer is when I was moving into my office here. I'm sitting in my office at church. I've realized some of you haven't seen it, or at least haven't seen it in a long time. I'm still getting settled, but one of the things I found in the office was this. So it's labeled question box. No matter what way you turn it, it has a slot in the top. And if we were in person, it would be really great to get you to write things on cards and put them in the box for me. But we can't do that right now. So I did the next best thing and made a Google form. And I would love for you to send in questions. And part of the reason I want to do this is that right now, one of the possibilities we're exploring this month is just getting acquainted with each other, me with you and you with me, and some of you with each other. And so questions are a good way for us to do that. Maybe you're wondering some things about me or about how I think. And so you can put in questions about that. You can put in fun questions. You can put in serious questions. And also, I'm very aware that questions help us explore possibilities. They open us up to new possibilities. Sometimes they don't have exact answers. Sometimes they have different answers depending on the situation, like the very important questions in the story we just heard. Thank you, Claire, for that. That was lovely. So any of those, if you can put in a question that's not answerable, if you want, into my question box. And if I have thoughts about it, I'd be glad to give it a go. So anything you'd like, you can put in that question box. And while you're thinking about that, I'd like to invite us into a spirit of meditation about questions. And this meditation was written by Linda M. Hansen. So let us all take a deep breath together. And enter into the spirit of meditation. Much of our human struggle is with what we do not know or understand. It is often difficult not to want answers, or even more difficult not to think we have them already. May we experience what we do not know as an individual, not as an individual failure, but as an invitation to community. May we seek not the true answers so much as the true questions, knowing that true questions make of our lives meaningful, even if sometimes restless journeys. May we be grateful for the restless voices in our communities. Let us take a few moments of silence to listen for the restless voices within ourselves. May we be good company to one another in our questions and in our journey. So may it be. So I am wondering what I have in my virtual question box. And it looks like I have a few things. Oh, someone sent me a good warm-up question. And by the way, I'm not going to give names here just to protect everyone's privacy. So first question I got was, what is your favorite color? And I decided that the answer people are probably looking for is purple, but really I like to give more complicated answers, you'll find. And really what I like best is anything between red and blue, and sometimes into green, but not so much orange, not so much yellow, but that red to blue spectrum, which is of course where purple lives, is really my favorite. And I kind of like lots of different shades at once instead of one at a time. Zoom is frankly driving me crazy because I need to dress in solid colors to not look too busy on screen. But someday we won't have to be, so thoroughly limited by that. So thanks for that question. Purple is my favorite color, but I like lots of others. So, are you looking forward to being able to gather in person again? I was tempted to answer sarcastically and say, no, I like Zoom. I don't have to think about what I'm wearing for shoes. But no, really, I'm very, very, very much looking forward to being able to gather in person again. It's been excruciating, actually, not to be able to. When I was serving a congregation that I had known in person for several years, it was really hard to be cut off from people and being with them, being in their presence physically. And now coming into a new church where I don't know very many of you, and I have met a few of you in person. And by the way, I've found, it's fall, it's not really hot anymore. So I've had a few meetings out in the breezeway at church. We have a couple little tables and chairs set up out there. So I'm starting to get to see people in person, and it makes a huge difference just to be in the same space with somebody The neuroscientists tell us our brains do something different when physically we're together. So I know that's important. And also the community together. We are something different when we are in a room together than we are when we're connected by Zoom. And I'm really immensely grateful that we have these tools. I spent the first, several months of the pandemic thinking, wow, it's really good this didn't happen 20 years ago. Or even 10 years ago, I think we would have caught up relatively quickly. But really to be able to connect this way over cyberspace is an amazing blessing. And I'm so glad that we've been able to do that. And I'm glad I can, it's a little clunky, but I can click through all the pictures of your thumbnails on screen, and I can see Teresa and Katie and Fran, and I'm not going to read all the names, but I can see you if you have your cameras on. And if you don't want your cameras on, you don't have to turn them on, and that's fine too. And we're really lucky. But yeah. The short answer is I really can't wait until we have a chance to be together. And I'm looking forward to gathering outdoors with smaller groups as we're able to. And the board is working really hard to get us to where we're ready to be together indoors too. When that time comes, I will enjoy it. Oh, and thank you all for the questions. They're coming in. And thank you for answering my question to you too. It's lovely to see what you all like about. I'm going to just share some of those. People love the sense of family here and the people they meet here. And feeling like the friends at Greater Nashville become like family. And spiritual grounding, the welcoming space, religious education, support for internal growth, sharing the safe space with like-minded folks, the land at Greater Nashville UU congregation. Y'all have so many blessings to share with each other. So I have a couple of questions here that says, what does success as our minister look like? And somebody else said, what is your biggest hope for the next year? How will you know you are successful as minister? Your personal measure of success. I know that's 2. By the way, you're welcome to submit as many questions as you want. So what does success look like for me for this year? With ministers, UU ministers anyway, in general, the first year is really for getting to know the congregation, for learning about you, who you are. So even if we were meeting in person, that would be my biggest goal this year. Not meeting in person, it's taking a little more energy and curiosity and inventiveness to get to know you. So that's where a lot of I'm kind of focusing right now on how can I get to know you. And I will feel it has been a successful year if at the end of the year we do feel that we know each other and we feel like a community, and I feel like I am part of the community you already are with each other. And I will feel that new relationships have been developed, not just with me, but with each other. I really love the vision of ministry the board's articulated for us this year, nurturing connection. I think it's just exactly what we all need right now. And I love all the many creative ways that people are starting to think about what that kind of connection, what kind of connections we would like to work on. It includes the connection to our site, to our land. And I love that. And it includes connections within the congregation. It includes connections with the wider community, both the community in Bellevue and in Middle Tennessee, the non-UU community around us, but also people are thinking about our connections with our UU siblings in other congregations. And I really, that's a project near and dear to my heart. I've been thinking about how UUs in Middle Tennessee might be better connected, and how all the many different ways they thrive in different communities. And so I'm looking forward to maybe exploring how we can connect. Yeah, so really personally, I will feel like I have become your minister when I feel like I know you. And so that's an ongoing project, and it's one that will frankly never, ever end. But I am looking forward to getting to know you all, and also to sharing who I am with you so that you feel like you know me. And that's something that just takes a little time. So we're already working on it. Oh, and let's see. Do you have pets? I don't have pets. Everybody in my family wants me to have pets. I grew up with dogs, and we did have cats when my kids were little. We had, for a while, we had more than one cat. Eventually, it became one cat, and that was fine. He was a grand cat. And when he died, everybody wanted another one. We tried a bunny rabbit for a while, but the rabbit was really good at getting out of the rabbit's house and chewed some wires in our freezer. And so we decided the rabbit wasn't a good fit for our family. And I love dogs, and there just aren't enough people at home regularly at our house. So we don't have pets. And that's a long answer to a very easy question. I kind of wish we did, but I'm not willing to take that on right now. What are my hobbies? I knit. I hang out with my family. My kids are now about to turn 18 and 22 years old. And my 22-year-old just graduated from college, so he's home while he's searching for a job. And it's really fun to have them around. And it's really interesting to watch them grow into adult human beings. And so they're I really feel like they're a big hobby of mine at this point. They're a lot less work for me on a day-to-day basis than they used to be. And that's fun. I also read a lot. I walk a lot. We're lucky enough to live close to a greenway, so I walk there, sometimes alone, sometimes with family, sometimes with friends. I said I read, I hope. Yes, I read a lot. I collect books too. They don't all get read. Yeah, that's all that comes to mind at the moment. I like to cook. I don't do it as often as I thought I'd like. So here's a question. What has been the thing that you've learned during this time of pandemic that was unexpected and actually has benefited your life? That's a great question. One of the things that I think we've all learned is that connecting online with Zoom and other platforms and being forced to use those more fully in our congregational life has actually helped us be more inclusive. There are people for whom connecting online is much, much more accessible. And also people go on vacation and they can still join us on Sunday for church. And so that is a blessing to our gatherings and a blessing to our sense of community that I don't think any of us is willing to let go of. So I really think even when we are able to gather in person, we're always going to be looking with how we connect with people who are not physically with us every time we meet. So we've been talking a lot about hybrid services. So services that will be live in person, but also have people connected by Zoom. And how do we make that experience good for both sets of people? But yes, it wasn't, it was something we probably should have thought of, but didn't. It was an unexpected thing, that how wonderful it was to have people who haven't been connected to us be connected. Yeah, so that's one unexpected learning. That's a really good question. I'm going to think about that some more, and I'll probably have other answers someday. I do have a question here about when will we return to building services, and will we continue with lunches? You know what? Those aren't really it's not my role to answer those questions definitively. The board and the Council on Shared Ministries are both working on these. What it seems to me is going to happen, just from the meetings I've been in the last week or so, is that we're working out the technical puzzles that have to be worked out to do a hybrid service well, so that everybody can see and hear and interact as well as possible. And we're going to try that out outdoors for a little while. We're going to try to take advantage of this wonderful, not summer, not cold, winter, wet yet, weather that is fall in Middle Tennessee, by having some services outdoors that are also hybrid. And then we are working on an indoor policy. The board is really close to finishing that up, and consulting with others about it. And then we'll be able to meet indoors. So that, I don't know when that'll come, but I'm thinking as the weather starts to get cold, we will probably be coming indoors. The lunches, I know everybody wants them. I want them because I'm always hungry when I'm done with church, and you are too. And eating together is one of the best ways to build community. You all already know that. You did it so well before. And we're going to have to be patient because we just don't know what's happening with COVID and other variants coming down the pike. And so we'll have to wait and see when it is safe to do it, we will do it. I think if you all still want to do it, it's kind of, what does the congregation want to do and what are you willing to make happen? But assuming that it continues to be really important to you, we'll get there. I just don't know when, unfortunately. Oh, here's a good Unitarian Universalist question. How do you respond when people don't understand Unitarian Universalism or argue that Unitarian Universalism isn't a religion? Well, usually I'll go with when people don't understand Unitarian Universalism, I would, of course, just try to figure out what it is they're not understanding. So the way, the response would be different depending on what they're having trouble understanding. If it's understanding that Unitarian Universalism isn't a religion, then we talk about what religion is. And religion isn't, to my way of thinking, if you look at humanity and the history of human communities, there is no one single template for what a religion is. Religion is what binds people together in community. It's a collection of cultural and religious and spiritual practices that help people along in their growth and development, and it looks very different in different places and times. So it's very hard, it seems to me, to just out of hand dismiss something as not a religion just because it doesn't look like what Western Euro-American culture thinks of as a religion. And so my response would be that I think a religion is something that holds people together in a community of faith, understanding faith to be a basic attitude toward life, an attitude of trust and searching and looking for truth and meaning. And we are definitely a tradition that does all of those things. And I would try to get people to open up their perspective and see that religion does that in many different kinds of ways. My favorite UU ritual, story, or ceremony. Oh, gosh, there's so many, but I think maybe child dedication may be my favorite, especially when it happens on Christmas Eve, because I was born into a tradition that taught that there's something wrong with a human being the way it's born, And a big part of why I'm not part of that tradition anymore is that when my son was born, I was already on the fence. I was on my way out anyway, but he was born and I was like, I'm sorry, original sin makes no sense. He doesn't need to be baptized to be fixed. He is perfect. He is beautiful and wonderful and sacred, just like he is. And when we do our child dedications, that's exactly what we're affirming. When we have Christmas Eve services where we sing or say, each night a child is born is a holy night. Every birth, every human being is valuable and worthy of dignity and respect and precious just as they are. And so that's kind of my very favorite thing about Unitarian Universalism. Okay. Oh, now we're getting down to the juicy questions. Let me try this one first. How do you balance an inward focus on peace and the strength of our connections to each other with an outward focus on justice and the strength of our connections to other communities in Nashville? I think the most important way I balance that is to recognize that that balance is not the project of any single individual. It is the project of a community. It's the project of the congregation. And part of the reason is that inward focus on peace, that's one thing. And some people are very good at that. The strength of our connections to each other within a small community, that's another thing. And many of you are masterfully good at that. And let me retract that word masterful. I find I don't like it. Many of you are just very, very good at connection within community, small communities like ours. And then the outward focus on justice and including connections to other communities in Nashville. There are certain personalities and types of people who are very skilled at that. And I think those it's very hard to find a single person who does all of those things really, really well. One of the really huge benefits of a community, of a congregation of faith, is that people who are wonderfully skilled at sitting in meditation and articulating what they find there and sharing that with others and encouraging others to go and find those gifts. Talk to people who know how to put on a really good Sunday afternoon lunch and make sure everybody feels welcome and invited and included and well fed and attended to. And those people all talk to the people who are going to NOAA meetings and are hearing over lunch about what NOAA's up to and how the congregation can show up to support those projects. And in a congregation, we have a chance to do all of that together and to hear from each other and to cheerlead for each other and not to expect any of us to do everything all alone. It's got to be a group project. And so we can do that together. And I don't know any way to balance all of that without involving a whole lot of other people. So thank you for being in that project with me, because I personally, in my own life, I cannot balance all of that, especially not day to day and week to week. These are long-term projects, all of them. And we do need each other, and we need to take turns and give each other a rest when we need it, and cover for each other, and encourage and support and cheer for each other. Okay, someone's asked, what's the hardest thing I've ever done that I would like to share with you? I'm going to come back to that one. I need to think for a minute. It's a wonderful question. How can we best support you? Wow. Well, I think there's probably lots of ways, and so listen to yourself and decide how you would like to support me, because I really don't want you to do anything for me just because I want it. I want you to do it because it feels like it be useful for you as well. And I mean you individually and collectively. What I really crave right now is to get to know you individually and as a group or as small groups. I'm kind of making my way around, finding where the groups are and trying to check in. So let me know you. One of the things that's really hard about the pandemic is that we all feel very isolated. So if you have a thought about what I have done, whether you like it or don't like it, share it with me directly, please. That would be really, when you give me feedback, you teach me how to minister to you. So please help me learn how to be the minister that you need, both individually and as a congregation. And one of the ways you do that is to give me respectful feedback. And it doesn't always have to be, I really liked this. And I can almost certainly promise you that just because you say you don't like something, I won't necessarily not do it again, because I might decide that, 5 other people really need that. But if you don't like something, let's find out what you would like. And maybe I can work that in too. Because y'all have lots of different kinds of needs. You're different people. So I need to hear from you. I need to be able to have conversations with you. And right now, email is a good way to start those conversations. But we can also use email to make appointments to meet in the breezeway here, or to meet at a coffee house with outdoor seating, or something like that. Or we could talk on the phone. We can hop on Zoom and have a conversation. I would love to be able to interact individually with a whole lot of you, actually with all of you by the end of this church year. Again, we don't have to do all this week. This will take a while. But I think that's really, really the best thing you can do to support me, is let me know how I can support you. Kristen is reminding us in the chat, sign up for picnics with the minister. We're leveraging that outdoor time of year here. So we're going to have a few picnics set up. Okay, I'm back to thinking about the hardest thing I've ever done that I'm willing to share with you. Okay, a lot of the hard things for me have been decisions that had to be made. Do I go big life decisions? Do I go this way or do I go that way? Do I, and there've been a couple that have been really felt very major to me. One was when I was young, but the more recent one was to decide to pursue ministry as a UU, to pursue ordination and credentialing. And the part of that was really difficult. I think I experienced a call to some sort of role like this from very early in my life, but I was not in a tradition that ordained women or recognized that call went to them at all. So I kind of tamped that down and it came back up after I'd been a UU for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And in talking with other ministers and thinking about whether or not to do this, the thing that felt hard to me, most of it felt like, yes, I can do that. I can talk in front of people. I know how to read and think, and okay. The thing that was hard is that I'm very private about my own feelings. And it became clear to me that ministry comes from being able to share my spiritual journey with other people. And for me, that spiritual part, that center of who I am, that's really private. I don't go around with wearing that on my sleeve. And so to come to terms with the fact that being a minister and being a good minister meant living some parts of my private life out loud for the benefit of other people was going to be something I had to learn how to do. And it was really, really terrifying to me up front in the abstract. Turns out actually doing it has not been as terrifying as I thought, because I'm really just a human being. And when I show up as my real human self, other people have been very kind and very supportive, and have shared with me how my willingness to say the things, to share those things, has helped them be human too. So it's actually not been scary in the doing, it was terrifying in the deciding. So that was a hard thing to do. And here we are, because I managed to do it anyway. Oh, and then there's a book question, and then we're at the end of the questions. A book that's influenced my thinking, and how did it do so? Oh, there's so many books. Really, these shelves over here behind me, those are some of my books, but not nearly all. And there's more coming. But a single book. Okay, picking kind of at random. But it's a more recent book, just in the last, I don't know, 5 years or so. I can't remember when I read it first, but you may have heard people talking about it. It's by, the title is Braiding Sweetgrass. I'm gonna have to look it up. Robin Wall Kimmerer, I think. Let me get the subtitle for you. It is written by a professor of botany who is also a member of the Potawatomi tribe, the Potawatomi Nation, excuse me. Yes, Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants. It just, it brought together so many things. She writes beautifully. And there's stories about mothering and about living in different parts of the country, and stories about old Indigenous teachings, and different ways of thinking about being in the world and being in community and communities connected to the world. It just opened up a lot of new questions about how we might live better in this time than we do. And it's just, I found it wonderfully challenging and accessible all at the same time. And some of that's because she's a teacher, and so that I spent a lot of time in the academic world, and so I get that kind of thing. And because she's a mother, and I identify with those stories too. But then there was all this these wonderful Indigenous stories that she uses to do some cultural criticism about our culture, and to show another tradition that thinks very differently in ways that they don't need to be foreign to us. They are part of the land we live in now. And so there was just a lot there. Every chapter had some new idea to think about and chew on. And I keep going back to that. And I see a lot of other people going back to that book over the years too. So if you've read it and you want to talk about it, call me. We can sit down and chat. I would love that. And I think we are now at the end of our questions. We are. Thank you all for sending those in. I really enjoyed that. And you know what? Knowing your questions, I feel like I know a little bit more about you. I really think questions are one of the most fabulous things in life. And so by way of ending, I have a question for you to carry on with. And it comes from Shel Silverstein, and it's a poem he wrote entitled Magic Carpet. You have a magic carpet that will whip you through the air to Spain or Maine or Africa if you just tell it where. So will you let it take you where you've never been before? Or will you buy some drapes to match and use it on your floor?
Thank you so much, Reverend Denise, for sharing those new insights into you as we learn and connect together these few months. Thanks to all of you who shared your questions. We appreciate it. Our next hymn is For All That Is Our Life by Bruce Finlow and Patrick L. Rickey. We've come now to our time of joys and concerns.